I've been on mute this whole time. Not good. So let me go ahead and repeat that. My name is Latoya Leary. I'm representing Amana Bible Institute today, and we're just having a candid conversation on the plurality of God. This conversation is just candid and honest. There are no PowerPoints slides that I have to show you. There is nothing I have prepared for you. This is just going to be me brain dumping, and hopefully you helping me with that by you also brain dumping and asking your questions as well. Hopefully some other ABI instructors will also come aboard and help in this conversation, but this isn't just meant for instructors, it's meant for you too. One thing about ABI is we're really big on students becoming teachers and teachers becoming students. So I would love to be able to just sit back and have you guys just share and give your comments. And if you want to come into this live Zoom session, please do as well. If you would just go to our website, and I'm going to type it right now. It should also be in the description box. Oh, that's Hebrew. No, we don't want to type it in Hebrew. It's yes, one day, and one day soon, Miss Felicia. It's just www.amanabibleInstitute.org. You can also put in .net. If you go to that same page or scroll all down, you'll see the Real Talk flyer. Just click on it, RSVP, and you're going to get the link right away. And you can come on in and actually lend your voice to the conversation, because that would be amazing. So let's chat. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of the plurality of God? Any thoughts? What first comes to your mind? And thank you so much for letting me know that I couldn't be heard. I really, really appreciate it. First thoughts. Any thoughts? Well, I'll share mine. So one of the things that comes to my mind is the Trinity. That sounds like a curse word to some Christians, because some Christians are so heavily opposed to the Trinity. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but there are multiple Christianities. There is no one Christianity. There are many, and we all believe and we all see God in very different ways. And there are some forms of Christianity where there is no type of belief in the Trinity. Yes, Miss Darlene, yes, the Trinity. And that's cool, but I want to make some things really, really important to you. Yeah, Miss Felicia, one God is also really, really great. So one thing that comes to mind when I think about the Trinity is it in the Bible? And the easiest way to make this clear is to just say no. Like directly, no, there is no Trinity in the Bible. There is no mention of it. In fact, it took the church fathers a long time to actually wrestle with the text and to wrestle with one another, literally wrestle with one another. Like people were exiled for this, you guys. People were exiled for their lack of belief in this and for these arguments that the church fathers were having a while ago on this. But pretty much there are multiple scriptures in the Bible that places these aspects of God, these persons of God, as three distinct entities. And then there are some that kind of conflate the two, or that think of these entities as kind of forming one entity. So one of you said, Miss Felicia, you said one God. And this is one of the explanations that we get. One of the potential explanations or interpretations of Deuteronomy 6:4, for example, just grabbing a Bible. It's called the Shema in the Jewish faith. Hear, O Israel, or listen, Shema Yisrael. the Lord your God is God. The Lord your God is one, right? And the Hebrew for that is so very, very ambiguous. It can be the Lord is our God. The Lord is the Lord God alone. It can be an affirmation of monotheism. We're only serving that one God. Or it can be an affirmation of the singleness of that one God. So yeah, that's there. Trisha, you said many perspectives and personalities, functions of God. Yep, that's there in the text. So one of the texts that comes to mind here, let me see, trying to think of a good one. I want to say the baptism of Jesus is probably going to be a really good example of this. Luke chapter 3, and this happens all over the Gospels too. multiple Gospels mention this event. But in Luke chapter 3, around verse 21, it says, now when all the people were baptized and when Jesus also had been baptized and was praying, the heaven was open and the Holy Spirit descended upon him in bodily form like a dove, and a voice came from the heaven, you are my son, the beloved, with you I am well pleased. And this is the NRSV version. One of the things that happens in this text is you see three persons that people who believe in the Trinity, all view as God. So you have Jesus, who is being baptized, identified as the son of this person speaking from the heavens. And then you have this third figure, descending upon Jesus's body like a dove, that's called the Holy Spirit. So all three entities in one verse. So the Trinity is really interesting. It took a long time for church fathers to figure out what's going on here and to come up with a plausible way of thinking about this. And they asked lots of questions like, can God suffer? Why would they have to ask a question like, can God suffer? Any thoughts about that? Why would that even be a thought in anybody's mind? Any aspect or person of God suffers? Any one in particular that you know that suffers? Why would they have to ask, can God suffer? Sorry, just trying to look at all these comments and making sure I'm looking at them all. But this idea came about because we know Jesus suffers. And if we think of Jesus as being God, being not just the Son of God, but being coexistent and in itself, in Jesus himself, being deity, being God, we have to struggle and wrestle with this idea that God can suffer, because Jesus's death was one that is riddled with suffering, right? And there is this need for that suffering to exist outside of this idea of Jesus being human, right? So there is an entire controversy on this, and I can give you some text to read if you're interested. I'm happy to send them to you, where there is this argument about whether Mary is the mother of God. Why would she be thought of as the mother of God? Because if she is the mother of Jesus and Jesus is God, then it means that Mary, a human woman, would be the mother of God. And it will also suggest that God can suffer. And people have a really hard time thinking of God as being one who can actually experience human-like things, like suffering, like varying emotions, like anger and sadness and things of that nature. Thinking of this perfect deity who can actually have heartbreak, right? Who can be humanized. But there are countless texts in the Hebrew Bible that suggest that this deity can be humanized. For example, the entire book of Hosea, you guys, like there are lots of prophetic voices out there, but they really don't read the Old Testament enough to really understand what's happening here. Hosea is like sensing the pain of God, essentially. It's a metaphor for he's living God's life, and that is metaphorically represented by Hosea's command to go and marry a prostituting wife or woman. You know, he has to go marry a woman who's adulterous, who's prostituting, who might have had children on him, like was stepping out multiple times. And he's forced to have to deal with the pain, the sadness, the anger that comes with that. And his words in so many ways, the prophetic words in themselves, you know, they take on even deeper form, because you read Hosea and you hear the heart of a broken deity saying, you got to name one of those children not not my people, essentially. Like, there are all of these really strong edicts and names given to lands, to territories, to people, you know, on account of this deity that has been hurt by and a dishonest wife symbolized by God's people. Yes, and Miss Darlene, Jesus suffered as the Son of Man. Another thing and that brings me to another thing, you know, emphasizing Jesus's humanity, making Jesus, calling Jesus the Son of Man, you know, and often correlating that or thinking about how that might be in tension with Jesus being the Son of God. You know, Jesus, in so many ways, if viewed as God, becomes this interesting bridge between God and humanity, you know, Jesus being a humanized form of the deity. Any other thoughts that come about when thinking about this? And like I said, if you guys are interested in reading some of those texts, I'm happy to send you some. I'm pretty sure I have them sitting right here in a handy dandy book. And shockingly just came up to one, actually. The Nestorian controversy. Like, it literally took me exactly to the same page. So I'm happy to, you know, send these over to you if you were interested. You can read about Nestorius and his issue with Cyril, or Cyril's issue with Nestorius. Now, there's another controversy that became really huge in the Christian church as well, on account of things like this, thinking through the nature of Jesus, thinking through, you know, aspects of the Trinity, called the Arian controversy. And that was a mess as well. There were many followers of Arius, and they were literally kind of fighting over who would have power. So whenever there was this larger Trinitarian group that had power, they would exile certain types of Christians. And then when Arian and his followers had power, they would exile Trinitarian Christians or bishops. So there was all of this back and forth in the Christian church, and all surrounding how they will see deity, how they will see God, you know, whether they will see Jesus as God, whether they see all these three persons as morphing into one deity, or having aspects and all being that one deity. Huge controversy here. And even though we don't quite live in a theocracy today, there's still very much that controversy. There are sects of people who truly do believe that all of these persons of God will fit into one, that they all represent God. And then there are truly people who will never conflate Holy Spirit with Jesus, or Jesus with the Father. Now, I can talk to you a little bit about my own way of seeing things. I always think of God as being mystery in itself. And so for me, it becomes really, really important for me to not pigeonhole myself into believing or seeing God in one particular way. So I often find myself more open to exploring all that God can be, whether it is through these distinct persons or through being a united deity for me. So sometimes I'm very, very clear in my prayers. I will direct certain requests to Holy Spirit, like requests for comfort and guidance and things of that nature. I'll direct other requests to the Father and other additional requests to the Son sometimes. So sometimes I will kind of divide my prayers that way. In identifying all three persons of God. And sometimes I just kind of use this blanket term God in general. I do find myself more so believing in the triunity of God, but I think if I had to identify anything right now, I will just err on the side of exploring and learning, right? And learning on it, like learning while on the job, essentially. Because as mentioned, I don't want to narrow who God could be for me, but also I think a lot of it also has to do with being reared in a family and in a church tradition that heavily emphasized the Trinity. So there is a lot of my day-to-day that has to do with me questioning a lot of the doctrinal principles that I was reared to know and to live out, and stopping myself from living them out without making informed decisions, which means I have to do my research, I have to explore on my own, and it becomes my job to meaningly live these things out with consciousness. So I'm constantly kind of asking questions and catching myself, like, why'd I do that? Why'd I say that? And it's the same with the Trinity or the triunity of God. These are things that I'm very much exploring. And I think having consciousness of all of these controversies that occurred on account of doctrines like the Trinity kind of also helps, because I think when you are reared in these things, you constantly think that these things are natural. It's natural to think this way. Of course, that makes sense. And you kind of feel kind of dumb when you don't get it. But when you're conscious of how people wrestle with these things before there were any of these doctrines that we teach today, you start to realize that, you're not stupid for not understanding this, and you're certainly not rebellious for asking questions. Like, it's important to ask those questions. It's important to stop and to be informed about all of the ways that people have answered these questions. And it's equally important to understand that sometimes the answer for some people has been, no, that's not a thing. But I think the Trinity in so many ways has become something that's super important for people to understand, because it's been a way of people dealing with the plural use of the term for God in the Hebrew Bible, which is Elohim. So we start Genesis 1 off with this God, right? I'll just read a little bit of it, and I'll replace the name for God in Genesis 1 with what it really says. It says, in the beginning, when Elohim created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from Elohim swept over the face of the waters, right? Then Elohim said, so just to kind of give you an idea what the Hebrew actually says, and Elohim is actually the plural masculine term utilized really truly meaning gods. So it is the same term that we get in other parts of the Hebrew Bible that's denunciating the belief in other gods, like in 2nd Isaiah or Deutero-Isaiah. This is the middle end part of Isaiah, around chapters 45 to 55. Those chapters are really big on, there being one entity that you ought to worship. And when it is denouncing belief in these other deities, these silly gods that people make, it is using the plural term for gods, Elohim. And it's because Elohim is plural. It literally means gods, right? We see it translated in our Bible as God because of understanding concerning how the Israelites are seeing things, right? And how Christians are seeing things. Because another thing you have to remember is that this Bible that we have, these texts that are translated, most of them are Christianized. Like, they are translated by Christians, and therefore people have gone into the Old Testament and they've kind of embedded some of their natural Christian propensities into the translation of the text, which is not okay, because the Hebrew Bible, it's not a Christian text. It's there. These are ancient Israelite texts and early Jewish texts. Later on, they become early Jewish texts. But the people who we see represented in Genesis chapter 1, these people are believing in, they are serving one entity above others. So I often tell people this, and people don't really get it. The ancient Israelites were not monotheistic. They weren't monotheist. They were henotheist, which meant that they believed there were other entities out there. They just chose to serve one of them all, right? And often people chose to serve the high deity, right? So in Genesis 1, what we're really getting is an introduction to the high deity, the creating deity, and it's one. They're seeing this deity as one, which is why we see the term God used there instead of gods. But yeah, there is a confusion there. And then later on in verse 26, then God said, let us make humankind in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over the cattle and over all the wild animals of the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. That brings in more plurality. That plurality is true to the text as well. And lack of understanding of the context that produced these scriptures really hurts that. What people think often is, oh, that's a reference to the Trinity. The Trinity is a later thing. This text is much, much earlier than this thing called the Trinity. It's more so, it most likely is a reference to this ancient idea that there are multiple gods and there is a divine council. So there in Ennead, there's a council of deities who make decisions about humankind and creation, right? Created things. And this might be the ancient Israelite way of not only affirming their own deity, who is God, who is better than those other deities like Ptah and Atum and, all these other deities that people are worshiping. But, this might be one of the remnants of those previous creation narratives that could not be glossed over, right? Wasn't cleaned up as much. And that's just coming from a historical approach. You can certainly read the text Christologically, so long as you understand that what you're doing is you're taking later doctrines and plopping them into earlier texts. You can certainly do that, but I'm actually going backwards. I'm going back to what might have influenced these people, what existed before these texts existed, and then I'm kind of making a correlation there. This might more so be one of the, there's a few references in the Hebrew Bible to a larger council of deities. So what do you guys think about that? And any other thoughts come up when you're thinking about the plurality of God, the Trinity? Does anything come up non-Trinitarian when you think about the plurality of God? And in what way do you think that this idea of God being many, do you think that ever poses any type of threat to Christian belief? I know I just threw at you like 3 or 4 questions. It's a habit. Any other thoughts here? So I'll mention one text that people often use again. Okay. Trisha, I think that this is a threat to many Christian beliefs. Yeah. How so? Can you tell me a little bit about why it might be a threat? I mean, there's certainly tension there. And honestly, I think that while the greater idea for humans is to run away from the tension, I think it's the tensions that make God most fun. Most believe in one God only. Yeah, that becomes the tension. I think I get where you're going there. It might be doing the opposite of what Christians are trying to do, especially if you're thinking about the ancient Christians who are living in a pagan world. So they're living in a world where people are worshiping many, many, many deities. This is why Christians and Jews are called atheists. It's not because they don't believe in God, it's because they reject all of the other deities. And it's not even that they chose to worship one of many. The Greeks and Romans would have been completely okay with Yahweh, completely okay with even belief in Jesus, to be honest. The problem is they're saying no other deity except Yahweh exists. That becomes a problem. That's why they're called atheists. So yeah, that's there. Yeah, and I agree with you there. Like this idea of the Trinity introduces this idea that there are multiple deities, and then that causes people fear and tension. And I think I agree with you, holding God into just being this one deity has all of these consistent aspects. Certainly impinges on God's ability to be vast, right? Like you can't have this big mighty God in a box if you're calling this God big and mighty and terrible and all consuming. Like you can't consume the all consumable or the all consuming, right? Like you can't do those things. And we often have very many ways of limiting this God that we claim is limitless. Any other thoughts here? Or even questions? Yeah, I agree. So Trisha said, multiple deities are the expressions of God. That's my opinion. I don't disagree, actually. I'm not completely sure that I'm far right or far all the way over to that side, though. I kind of take a middle ground. And this is why. And some people are not going to like that I'm going to say this. Humans need purpose, and humans have a really, really interesting way of affirming purpose and affirming their own action as right. One of the ways that humans do that is they place their right action in air quotes, into the mouths of deities. So one of the things that happens, for example, in the Enuma Elish, and I'm happy to send you that if you want to read it. It's a Babylonian text that has an image of how things were created. But one of the things that happens in this text, much older than the Bible, but most definitely, most likely in one of the texts that influenced Genesis or some aspects of Genesis. But nonetheless, one of the things that happens at the end of the text is a temple for the high god named Marduk is created in Babylon. And the setup of humans, right? This social economic setup that there will be slaves and free men, or there will be men at the top and then people at the bottom, is affirmed through the creation of humans in the Enuma Elish, where humans are there to serve the gods, and the gods represent the elite, and the humans represent, in so many ways, this poor or non-elite structure. So not only do you have affirmation in this creation narrative that Babylon is the place, we're the place because the high God lives here in Babylon. But you also get affirmation that the way that we're structuring things is exactly how things are meant to be structured, because this is how things were structured, at creation. Right? So that's another aspect that people often don't think about. Gods do the work of helping us cope with, the rightness of our decision making. Totally right. It does, because it's all over the text. It's all over the Hebrew Bible. There are these common like affirmations of this deity and of personhood, of election, by connecting this chosen people or this chosen place to a God. That's what gods do. They create authority in so many ways. Now, the other side of this becomes gods have to explain why things go awry. Why do things go awry? Because, you didn't feed the gods enough. Why did things go awry? Why did that happen? Because because humans were just too noisy, right? Because humans were just too problematic. Why did bad things happen? Because there's too much murder in the land, and the gods are not with that. So gods also explain our downfalls, and gods are classed into multiple categories as well. There are high entities, middle kind of entities, and then these lower kind of daimons, or these kind of, entities that are lower. They're kind of gods. They're divinized. Some people kind of demonize them, see them as devils because they're temperamental. And you guys, I have to be really honest. Yahweh would have been really, really weird in the ancient Near East, because Yahweh lived on mountains and was associated on hills, and Yahweh seemed very temperamental. And people often viewed deities who were like that as, the modern way of calling entities, demons, if that makes any sense. Though Yahweh was not a demon to these people necessarily, but just super duper weird. Yahweh would have been classed as a deity that you need to be really, really careful with, because if you do any particular thing, you can either get a beautiful aspect or a poor aspect. Like these so-called daimons in the ancient world, they're the same deities that make you sick and make you well. This is just like the ancient view of like seeing their gods. So gods kind of explain these things. We need them to live as humans in so many ways. They explain things they explain the unexplainable. Yeah, definitely makes Yahweh seem extremely like an extreme narcissist. But I'll also say that this is not just Yahweh. This is all of the gods. There's a narrative. I just had the Bible Sex and Other Text students read it for yesterday or Thursday's class, a Plato symposium, where the humans are created. They're like one huge blob of like two humans back to back, essentially, that made up one. So you have like the two human or the two female group and the two male group and then the male female group. And these humans are really, really strong, you know, because they have four legs and four of everything, like four eyes, four arms, and they're just super duper strong. They feel invincible. They piss the gods off, you guys. And then Zeus is like, wait, what do we do with these? We can't kill them, because if we kill them, we ain't getting no sacrifices. So what do we have to do? He's like, I'm gonna punish them by splitting them in half. Now, this is why you get two-legged humans, right? And if they make me mad again, I'm gonna split them in four and they're gonna be hopping on one leg. This is supposed to be hilarious, right? Because this is a drinking party. It's a symposium. People are drunk and they're sharing stories. This story is about love. Nonetheless, yeah. Zeus in itself, you can view Zeus as temperamental, you know, in this narrative, and very much a narcissist. The gods decide that humans are meant to serve they're meant to serve the gods. And whenever humans are not doing that well enough, you know, we could be non-existent essentially, or become half of what we are, right? The gods have a way of reducing humans, and in one way or another it keeps humanity in this very space of being created, not creator. And I think in so many ways there's that tension, because more positive views of the gods, including the God of Christians and Jews, you know, will actually empower or endow humans with creative abilities and some form of divinity in itself. But there are always narcissistic views of every entity. But yeah, so I definitely agree with you. All of these deities that we create, they do kind of have all of these expressions, aspects of perhaps even a larger entity of, you know, that we call God or deity in itself. Yeah. I'll also say this, like, gods were anything that were unexplainable. Uranus, for example, that just means sky or heavens. It's this God that's viewed to live in the sky. That deity is the sky itself. You know, Apsu and Tiamat in Babylonian text, they're the fresh water and the salt water, right? So you have these water entities. They're connected to the waters, I think, because the waters are vast, they're mighty, they're big. They are in the realm of the unexplainable. You know, rain becomes something. Shu is the wind, right? He sneezes and there's Shu, right? The wind. So all of these unexplainable, like, things end up being divinized in the ancient world, and still very much in modern polytheistic culture as well. Any other thoughts, you guys? We've been on for a while. Anyone with the last word? I never like getting the last word, so. And I guess slightly I might have the last word, because I do want to show you our new website, because it's lit. I think it's lit. But anyone want the last word on the Trinity or the plurality of God? Okay, so let's conclude just with a little tour of our website, you guys. And I also want to let you know that we are offering a free class at Amana that will start the end of April, and we're going to keep offering this free class for you guys. I am creating the manual for this course, so the only thing you'll need to pay for is my manual if you want it. But the class is a 4-week class on how to study the Bible utilizing free online tools, and it's 4 weeks, 1 hour a week, and it's free of charge. So go ahead and register. This is our website, you guys. If you scroll all the way down, we're always going to have new and fun things here under the nudes area. So we have here our last webinar for this month. Here, a new webinar schedule will be coming out pretty soon. So keep your eye out for that, including a new course schedule. Yay, because we offer new classes every single month. So we're going to release those to you soon as well. The only course we're going to offer in April, though, will be Bible Language Tools Online Resources. It's a free course, you guys. You can just click this button and register for it, or you can just click on course registration here, and you will see all of the courses that we're offering. The only one that has not started and that will be available soon will be the Bible Language Tools Online Resources course. But you can also schedule some free academic advisement or spiritual advisement. So don't shy away. Schedule your free session and let us help you figure out the ways in which we can better assist you or give you tips on whatever you would like help with. In addition, we have grow plans. So we have monthly grow plans where you can take a certain number of classes every single month for a set fee. We have the grow plan is probably the cheapest way to take our classes because our individual classes are now $70. Thanks, Beck. The grow plans, though, are $60. You can cancel them at any time, you guys, but these plans do place you in recurring payment plans, but you can cancel them at any time, and you just register for your new class every month. And we have certificate programs, both basic and advanced, in biblical languages, biblical studies, and Christian ministries. The Christian ministry certificate is the most flexible. You literally make it your own. You create it your own. We have organizations, for example, or partnerships, one that we've secured already and one that we hope to secure soon, that are creating their own certificate programs for their own churches or for their own fellowship groups and things of that nature. So if you want to do that, feel free to set up a meeting, a free meeting. We'll talk about how to make these flexible enough for you guys. But yeah, and then we have these individual plans. If you want to just register for one class and you don't want to be in any kind of recurring process or whatnot, you can actually just select a subscription for one class and one class alone. So it's kind of fun. And you can bless somebody else with the class. You want to give someone a 4-week class as a birthday gift or a Christmas gift or just you gift. You can do that. You can also do that with an 8-week class and a 12-week class. We're bringing back 12-week classes, you guys, and we're actually going to be taking our survey courses, which are normally done in 3 or 4 8-week classes, and we're going to be putting them in one 12-week class. So we're going to try our best to give you everything that you might want to learn about the Hebrew Bible and everything you might want to learn about the Greek New Testament in 12 weeks. Right? 2 separate 12-week classes, one for the Old Testament, one for the New. So yeah, you'll have an opportunity to take a 12-week class, I believe, this summer. I want to say it will start about August 1st. So be on the lookout and learn and grow with us. Before just leaving and discontinuing this live or whatnot, I do want to say, I don't know if you've noticed with the lives that we've had thus far, ABI isn't interested in swaying your opinion. We're not interested in telling you any or affirming any one Christian teaching. We are just here to give you all the deets. We want to give you all the information, and we want to free you to ask the types of questions that you need to ask so that you can wrestle with these things on your own. We want to help you have all the resources you need to make an informed decision. We don't need to be a part of that that informed decision. We're not interested in that part of it. This is why Amana Bible Institute does not have a statement of faith. I refuse to have one because I don't want any of our classes to be taught from one particular standpoint. And I really just want us to be an institution that's out here for lifelong learners who are interested in just receiving, learning, but also just receiving every bit of information that you need to go out into the world and engage all of its tensions, because there's nothing easy about living a religious life. There is nothing easy about living a human life. It's all a wrestle. It's all a fight. And you have to learn to do that when it comes to the interpretation of the Bible and when it comes to living out who you see God to be, and also allowing that to expand in itself, like who you see God to be, to change from today to tomorrow and things of that nature. Nonetheless, we want to be here as you think through those things and as you wrestle with those tensions. So if you needed an idea of who we are, that's it. We are the place you come to for your safety. We want you to ask all your questions. There are no stupid questions. They're all necessary. And we just want to share every bit of knowledge we have to help you out. That's really it. Plus, we need people to talk to, because when you're a Bible scholar, you either hang out with all of the snooty Bible scholars who make you feel really low because they sound so brilliant, or you hang out with the people who know nothing and you are the brilliance in the room. And I hate both of those places. I want to be in the middle. I want to learn and I want to teach. And ABI is that place where I get to learn from my students. I've learned so much from my students. I've learned so much from Miss Felicia, so much from so many of the students who've been coming to us for a while. And I'm also really excited to be able to share all of this insight and all of this knowledge that I have with other people. Because I do think it's needed. Like I've heard many sermons and many things come out of the mouths of Christians, and I'm like, oh, if only you had read this text, so there's that. But I think we're gonna, go ahead and sign off now. Please be on the lookout for new webinars and new classes. And I hope you guys have a brilliant and loving and restful day. Bye.